exactly does it mean to be successful? Is it a big paycheck, a change in job title, a ton of new responsibility? How often have you found yourself just jumping from promotion, climbing the career ladder as fast as you can without really celebrating when those big wins happen, because nothing ever feels like it's enough? If you were tired of being overworked and exhausted and never really getting recognized for all the hard work that you put in, let's talk about how you can have your cake and eat it too. Welcome back to Organized Chaos. My name is Regan, and I am so very, very happy that you are here. If you are new, you know that we talk about building your mental health at work and in life, combining your personal and professional goals together into something that you love. Because the exhaustion and the burnout and the stress is honestly never, ever worth it. And as many of you know, I had an awful burnout a couple of years ago. One that pushed me to the brink of just I don't even know what. I needed to quit my job. I needed to go sit and rest. I cried on the couch for about 6 months. I was so tired, and I frankly couldn't do it anymore. Nothing felt like it was going to motivate me. I was so ready to just throw in the towel in this dream of becoming a CMO one day. This dream of climbing the corporate ladder and achieving all of those dreams felt like it was just slipping away. And that was a really hard thing for me to start to grapple with. But I, like many of you, was in the position of, holy shit, I'm working all the time. Why is nobody recognizing how much I'm working? Why am I not getting the promotions that I want, even though I'm working my absolute ass off, even though I'm putting all of my personal life aside in order to get this shit done at work? Why is no one listening to me? I just felt so stuck, and I did not think there was anything that I could do or anyone else could do, quite frankly, to help me get out of that position. On the one hand, you could consider me stubborn, but on the other hand, I think this is a problem that so many of us experience. And so over the last 2 years, I've really been trying to look at objectively what happened. What happened in my career? What happened in my life? What decisions did I make that may have led me to the burnout, and where could I have stopped it? What lessons do I wish that I had learned previously before burning out that might have stopped it? Because there were warning signs. Of course there were warning signs. I just didn't notice them. On the one hand, no one had ever taught me to notice them. But on the other hand, I had pushed trusting myself, trusting my gut, that feeling so far down that I didn't even know where to find it. So for years, I had thought to myself, is this the right thing that I should be doing? Should I actually be moving in this direction? I loved the work that I was doing. I loved the team that I was on, but I was placing my worth so much in other people's hands that when it came to making decisions, I wasn't thinking about how I felt about it. I was thinking about how other people would perceive it. So those job titles, those promotions, that was all done for somebody other than myself. And it wasn't until I made the decision, which was kind of out of necessity, to quit my job because I had burnt out. It wasn't until that point that I really sat back and thought about, okay, how would I go and prevent this from happening again? So today I wanted to go through the 11 secrets that, had I known when I was younger, I likely could have stopped myself from burning out. And I want you to take these. I want you to listen, take these to heart. I want you to give me your feedback on them, add any others into the list if you have them, because the more people who know about this, the better. The more people who can understand that work does not need to be our entire existence, that you can have professional and personal success all at the same time, the better. Last week, I talked about in the I'm a Recovering Girl Boss episode how the girl boss culture, I think, is really leading to this insane amount of burnout that exists amongst our generation, because we all grew up in the culture of we can do anything that men can, but we're going to continue to perpetuate a culture of assimilation instead of equity. So we're not going to give people the same opportunity based on where they're starting from. We're just going to say, oh yeah, we're giving them the same opportunity based on where they are, and not recognizing the inherent differences in our own experiences, not recognizing the biases, and forcing the women, us, to work 10 times harder and burn ourselves out in order to try to fit into this mold of what society expects from us. And I'm trying to prove that you don't have to quit your job. You don't have to forfeit your income. You also don't need to forfeit your personal life in order to have the success that's in your head. So here are my 11 secrets that I wanted to share with you today. So the first one is, and this is just like a blanket, we're going to dive right in, stop asking for permission. If you think about the leaders in your organization, whether or not you are a leader yourself or you see leaders around you every single day, think of them. Do they ask permission for budget spend? Do they ask permission to make a decision that's obviously within their scope of their role? Do they worry about what someone else is going to think when they make that decision? Probably not. So then why are you so concerned about taking charge of your own life in your own role? So often we wait for somebody else to give us permission before we actually go and do something. But that only serves the purpose of continuing to prove to our brains that we need permission in order to take action. You have everything that you need inside of you. You know what actions you can take and which ones you might need help with. But don't stop yourself from taking steps in a direction that you really don't need permission to do so. If we're talking about it in the context of a role, if you think about who is getting promoted the fastest in your company, it's typically the people that are taking action. No Rules Rules, which is one of my all-time favorite cultural books, looks at the culture of Netflix. And one thing that they tried to analyze was the difference between candidates who had a bias for action and a bias for analysis. Bias for action isn't always the best thing, but it's definitely something that you want to prioritize in yourself and then also the candidates that you end up hiring. So companies are looking for people who are ambitious, who are ready to take action, and who are ready to jump in when needed. But waiting for somebody else to give you instructions is not only going to stress you out, right? Because you're just constantly waiting. It's also going to stress your team out because they're constantly needing to feel like they're dragging you along. Be a team player, jump in, stop asking for permission. And then particularly, I want to focus on asking for permission when it comes to living your life. Your leaders in your organization are not asking for permission themselves to go and take action where they know they can take action. So why are you, the CEO of your own life, waiting to take action until somebody else approves it for you? You are allowed to choose what is right versus wrong in your own life, and only you can actually make that decision for yourself. This is something that I wish I had known. I wish I had known it. I've always had the bias for action. And I will say most of my promotions in the past, the reason why I was able to climb from a coordinator role to a director role so quickly is because of my bias for action. I jumped in. If I saw something that needed to get done, I did it. If I saw a project that needed to be taken on, I did it. Now, what I wasn't doing was translating this over to my life. I wasn't promoting myself within my own life. I was waiting for somebody else to give me that promotion. And so I started doing things for everyone else. And that's what got me stuck. All of a sudden I went, wait, is this even the career path that I want to be on? Is this even what I want my life to look like? And the most freeing thing that I ever did was actively, intentionally choose what I wanted to do next. It's not always easy, but that is what I wish I had known before burning out, that I can make the choice. I can make the choice to go and take a break right now because this is what I need. I can make a choice to go and quit this job and go and apply for another one because this is a better path for me. Not out of concern of what other people think about me, but because I need to do this for myself. My second suggestion is be resourceful. And this kind of goes along with the first point. Be resourceful. The people in your company, like you think about somebody who's constantly pinging you and asking you, like, how do I do this? And where do I find this? And it's just like, doesn't understand the concept of Google. That, like, people like that frustrate me to no end. If you don't understand the concept of Google, it is going to be so difficult for you to move through life. Google is your best friend. Google is what can help you stop feeling imposter syndrome. I talked about this in one of my previous episodes. Imposter syndrome can actually be your best friend because it can show you that you are moving in a direction where you're ready to learn. But if you're afraid of learning, if you are afraid of finding information for yourself on your own, we need to take a step back and start to think, how can you be more resourceful? Where can you find that resourcefulness or those opportunities for resourcefulness in your own life? If you catch yourself asking someone or just pinging someone quickly, what time do we need to be at this thing tonight? Think to yourself, have I already received an email about this? Is this somewhere where I know I can go and find it? Because why are you waiting for somebody else to give you those instructions? Go and find the instructions yourself. Now, I will say, if it's not worth your time, your effort, or your energy, and it's easier to go and ask that question, of course, go and ask the question. Don't confuse this with needing to do everything on your own. You don't need to do everything on your own. You can always ask for help. But there is an element of independence that is important, especially when it comes to your professional life. People will trust you more if they know they're not going to need to tell you something 3 or 4 times, if they know they're not going to need to constantly hold your hand through everything. Resourcefulness is going to be your best friend. The third thing is communicate your limits. I used to take communicate your limits as just like communicate, but always take something on. So what I mean by that is I thought that I was communicating my limits when someone asked me, hey, will you take on this project, let's say, or hey, this project needs to be taken on. I thought communicating my limits meant, yes, of course I can take that on. Tell me, let's talk through what deliverables need to be achieved in this project. Here's what I think. Here's what you think. Okay, great. What's the priority on this project? And then saying yes. Always saying yes and accepting the project. I thought that if you just even, dove in, if someone asked you to go and do something, the answer was going to have to be yes. It was just a question of when. The real concept, and what I really wish I knew about communicating your limits, is the option of no, not right now, maybe later, is always there. But you have to do it in a tactful way. You can ask somebody, let's talk about the priority here. I love that question. When somebody gives you a project that you're like, I really don't have time for this right now. I just really don't have time for this. The question of, can you tell me a little bit more about the priority here? What are you trying to achieve is a great one, because 9 times out of 10, there's likely another project like that going on somewhere in your organization. And if you can be the connector, right? If you can be that connector, this is kind of a side point, that's going to be huge for you in your career. If you can be the person who is resourceful, going back to point 2, and say, oh, I actually know somebody who's already working on a project like that. Let me connect you with them. And then you can just make sure that project continues to move along and check in, but you are the one not duplicating, replicating, reinventing the wheel, but just moving projects along in the way that they should go. That's going to be huge. And so that goes along with communicating your limits. You want to gather all that information before you say yes or no. But there are times where something's just not worth it. Something will just not be worth your time or your energy. And if you have the decision-making power, if you are at the level in your career where you can make that choice of yes versus no, that is so important to communicate. We cannot take this project on right now. We're going to need to reprioritize this, if this is a real priority, to another quarter, another month, another year, whatever your answer is. But there are also times where you can just go ahead and say no. Communicating your limits when it comes to projects that are given to you and you don't really have the opportunity to say no is a little bit different. Now, again, you have to do this with tact, but it is about going to your leader or your manager, depending on what level of your career you're in, and saying, here's everything on my plate right now. I can only take on X, Y, Z, and you're going to have to qualify that because this is taking this much time, this is taking this much time. I probably have room for one more project. What would you like me to prioritize? There is also an element of putting the onus back on your manager or your leader. Their job is to help you strategize. Their job is to help you prioritize what is happening in your schedule and what is on your calendar. So if you feel like it's getting overwhelming, if your stakeholders aren't listening to you, if they're not taking no for an answer and you are struggling to communicate your limits, what you can and cannot do, then of course, go to your team lead and sit down with them and create a game plan. But that is going to take the other 2 points that I mentioned previously, the resourcefulness, having that bias for action, before you're actually able to get to the point where you can communicate that limit. Because the answer does not always need to be, yes, right this very second, I can complete that thing for you. You have time, you have space. So take a deep breath, think about it, gather all the information that you can, and then make an informed decision based on what you can accomplish, to what degree, and how quickly. The 4th point, and this one can be a little bit contentious, but I think it's so incredibly important, is work can be transactional. I saw I don't know if it was a post or a video, but something saying that there's a rise in this idea of micro retirement. And I freaking love that. Instead of bulking all of your work to the front end of your life and then waiting to take time off until the later stage of your life, take time off throughout your life. And there are some people who are going to have that opportunity, right? Like some companies, they offer sabbatical. Some people are in the financial position to go on sabbatical. And I love that idea. But I think we need to look a layer deeper before we can even start to open ourselves up to this idea that you don't always need to be working. And that is the concept of work can be transactional. There are different times in your life. There are different phases in your life when you are going to want to be all in on work. And that is amazing. That is awesome. And I am so excited for you. As long as you are intentionally choosing that course of action for yourself. There are going to be other times where work is just kind of a means to an end. And that is also okay. You don't always need to tie your time, your effort, and your energy into the job that you are doing. And the way that you can start doing this is by asking yourself, what do I really want? What do I want out of my career? Forget about the shoulds, because we often get so clouded in those. It's an emotional weight that sits on us when we think about, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. No, what do you want to be doing with your career? There are some people who all they want to do is make an income, right? They just want to make an income so that they can go on the big vacations, so they can buy the clothes, so they can go do the workouts, and that's what they need out of their career. There are other people who have bigger aspirations for that. Both are totally valid. Both are totally okay. But you need to be making that intentional choice for yourself. There are times when work is just a job, when you have low motivation and you're like, I need to go and kind of recover from the hard work that I've just put in. And there are other times where you're going to want to be super heads down in a project based on a specific goal. I remember there was a time in my life where I had been put on, I was the lead for this big user conference that we had. And I made the intentional choice. I'm going to work my ass off because I want to make this the best user conference. And I've been given the opportunity to go and prove myself here. And so I did exactly that. But there was that goal linked into it. I want to go and achieve this goal by the user conference. And then I took a step back. Now, I didn't take a big enough step back. And I think that's what ultimately led to my burnout, was I didn't then switch and say, right, that user conference is over. Now I'm going to go and reset my focus. My career was my top priority for the last 6 months. And I'm now going to go and reset my focus and prioritize my well-being in my personal life so that we can even the scales again. The ideal is that you're focusing on all of them at once. I think that's a little unrealistic considering we just have constantly shifting priorities. But the reality is that sometimes you got to pick and choose. You got to pick and choose, and you got to be intentional. The next piece of all this is there is no such thing as a dream job. There's just none. And if you have that in your head, let's just wipe that misconception out. Let's just remove it really quickly, because there's no such thing as a dream job, I'm so sorry to say. You are never going to walk away from a job every single day and say, oh my God, that was the best day I've ever had. In the same way that you're probably never going to walk away from a relationship and say, this is a perfect relationship. Nothing is perfect, but it's perfect for you. And that's the difference. Your dream job achieves exactly what you want it to achieve, but you can't have everything. You got to pick and choose. So whenever I work with clients in my one-on-ones, we typically sit down and we think about what's your list of non-negotiables? What is your list? Is that you want flexible time? You want to be able to travel. You want to work remote. You want a specific salary. You want to have equity. You want to have a sign-on bonus. You want to reach a particular financial goal. You want to work on a particular project. What are your non-negotiables? What do you want? And how many of those are going to be realistic? Now, you should go and try and reach for as many of those as possible. But you'll see an interesting thing happens as you start to go into interviews with this new frame of mind. You'll recognize the jobs that seem more interesting and exciting, even if they don't fit all of your non-negotiables. Even if they don't fit everything on that list that you had, you'll realize this could actually be my dream job because you've listed it out. So your brain is starting to look for it when it comes to interviews. Your brain is starting to identify, okay, is this team culture somewhere where I would want to be? Do they allow flexible working? Do they have a fitness stipend? Do they have whatever it is? You will start to recognize what is important to you and what is not important to you and start making decisions based off of that. Number 6, as we go through this list, is closed mouths don't get fed. Closed mouths do not get fed, my friend. You need to ask for everything that you want in this world, and that takes a lot of confidence. You have to learn to have the confidence to ask for what you need. And what I find so fascinating is if you think about our parents' generation and the way that they tackled work, it's very different from the way that we tackle work today. And so you're going to get some conflicting advice. Most of the time, they would join the company at a very young age and then just climb their way up. But their competition was between the people at the company already. It was very rare for people to hire from outside and bring them in. People were promoted from within. Now, people are very rarely promoted from within. We should promote people much more often than we actually do from within, but that's the reality. And so our competitive landscape of the people that we are working with, the people that could potentially take the roles that we are going to go and apply for, is huge. The internet alone means that people from all over the world can apply for the jobs that we also want to get. So the competition is much more fierce. It's great that we can hop from job to job every couple of years and double our income as we go about that. But it means that we need to get much more comfortable with asking for exactly what we need. Closed mouths don't get fed. You need to go and be able to support yourself, be able to choose those non-negotiables and then say, here's how I want to achieve them. What does that look like in your company? And then be able to stand on your own 2 feet and decide for yourself whether or not something makes sense for you. I was always so afraid to ask. I was always so scared to ask for the things that I needed. And I remember I had a couple of really awkward conversations when I tried to start doing that. But there has never been a job that I haven't negotiated for. Every single job I've ever received, every offer I've ever received, I've always negotiated because I knew that unless I negotiated, I wasn't going to be given exactly what I needed and I wasn't going to be paid my worth. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work, but I always asked. Now, the second piece to this, which is my next secret, is empathy gets you closer to a yes. Getting closer to a yes requires you look at it from the other person's perspective. So when I went and actually negotiated, I never just negotiated kind of off the cuff. I always negotiated with a purpose in mind, meaning if I were to go and say, thank you for offering me this income, this salary, I was thinking of something closer to this number. This is the number I'd like to get to. How do we get there? I always qualified it. This is market rate. This is what I was paid at my previous job. Here is what other people in my same role with my same experience are also paid. You start to qualify it. But by empathizing, by sitting there and saying, what is this person actually going through and what's going to help them say yes easier, you get yourself one step closer. It's kind of like if you were to work with a stakeholder and you were to go to them and be like, I need $5,000. Is that stakeholder just going to go give you $5,000? Is your manager just going to go give you $5,000? Probably not. But if you sit back and you think about, okay, what information do I need in order to help them make the decision? Start to bring that together. Start to put yourself in their shoes. Now, there is a thin line between over-empathizing and empathizing so that you can get more information, right? We don't want to be manipulative, one. And two, we don't want to let other people make the decisions for us. But what we are doing is creating a dialogue that is productive and that is actually focused on what is our mutual goal here. So with that stakeholder, what I used to do when I would have stakeholders who I needed something from, resources, budget, time, whatever it was, I'd sit down and be like, tell me a little bit about you and what you're going through. I'd learn their struggles. I'd learn what they're working on. And then I would build that into my pitch for them. Being client-centric, as we call it, being stakeholder forward, being people forward, relationship building is so key. And that is why I say empathy always gets you closer to a yes. The next point that I wish I had known before I just totally let myself burn out is that their lack of planning is not your emergency. Now, we hear this all the time, but what I really take this to mean is that your nervous system does not need to go into overdrive or feel like there is a tiger lurking around the corner because you're about to have a conversation with a boss that you don't really love. I used to have panic attacks before I went into meetings, and I don't mean that in an exaggerated way. I mean that in a real way. I would go into a total freeze and I would start to panic. Things would go black. I had to really walk myself back from that ledge, put myself back down on earth and say, what is happening here? I would practice what I was saying before I went into meetings. Now, that should have been a clear sign that I probably wasn't in the right place with the right people, nor was I in the right space for my own nervous system if it was going into overdrive that easily. There was a lot of work that I needed to do in order to be able to step back from that. What I wish I had remembered is that their lack of planning is not my emergency, meaning if they throw something at me in the middle of a meeting that I'm so unprepared for, that I was just like, we didn't talk about this before and I need time. I wish that I had had the confidence to sit there and say, I don't know right now. I'm going to need time to go back and get it to you. Next time, I'd appreciate if we could have that agenda set beforehand. Because people are going to try and push you. People are constantly going to try and push you. Remember, they have their own things going too, right? Like everyone has their own problems. Everyone has their own thing that they're trying to work on. So let them do their thing. Let them do their thing. But you can also ask for what you need and tell them your limits. So that's where those other two secrets kind of come into play here, is that communication is so key, but you're allowed to stand up for yourself. It's so easy to feel that panic start to rise. So easy. When someone messages you at like 9 o'clock at night saying, oh my God, this thing needs to go out right now. It's so easy to feel like I have to jump back on my laptop and work and get this thing done for this person, regardless of their level, regardless of who they are. It's so easy to feel like I want to be a team player. I want to be helpful. And I pride myself on doing a good job. But just because you say no, just because you say, I can't do this right now, just because you communicate your limit does not mean you are not doing a good job. You are doing a good job because you know the difference between what you feel like is a good job for you and what is an overextension of your time, your effort, and your energy, where you are spending too much time, effort, and energy on somebody else versus the effort and energy that you have intentionally decided to spend when you are at work. I'm going to bleed this into the next secret because I think it's important to link these two together. These all are kind of linked together, but it's your personal life also matters. So when you start feeling like there's a tiger around the corner, right? Because 9 o'clock at night, you get this ping from your leader that's like, where is this document that you quote unquote said that you were going to send me today at noon, but never did, but you never actually committed to sending him that piece of paper or that document. It's so easy to feel like, oh my God, I fucked up and I have done something wrong and now I need to fix it. When in reality, your personal time matters. The time that you spend outside of work rejuvenating, being a real human being, matters, because work is not 100% of our lives. Work does not need to be that. If that's your life right now, cool, but it does not need to be everyone's life at this given moment. Some people are working to live. Some people live to work. Some people just trying to go on vacation and have fun. But I think we should all be given the opportunity to decide that for ourselves. And as long as you're getting your work done, as long as you're proud of your own output, as long as you're focused on that output, that's what's going to be the most important here. But I never prioritized my own personal life. The amount of sleep that I didn't get because I was scrolling through Slack right before I went to bed, and then same thing in the morning, I would wake up and just immediately open Slack. Like the headaches that I had because I spent so much mental energy thinking about work, really to no increased productivity. Like my productivity was not doing better because I was spending so much time thinking about it. But I was ignoring my personal life because it felt like it wasn't a priority. It just felt like it wasn't worth it. The best thing that I've ever learned from burning out is that if I don't work out, if I don't eat at least 3 meals a day, if I don't sleep enough, if I don't spend time reading, if I don't go outside, I'm not going to feel like a human. Feeling like a human is the bare minimum. Like that is not something that we should be rewarded for, of like, oh, congratulations, you got to work out in today, or you got outside today, right? Like you don't even need to work out, but like you got outside. That should be the bare minimum. We should know that that is what people are going to go and achieve, and we should encourage that at our jobs. So that goes along with the next career secret, which is not really a secret, but it is take breaks. Take breaks. Pretend like you are in school and schedule those breaks in. If you think that I don't have my lunch and my snack breaks and my morning routine and my evening routine on my calendar, like you have another thing coming. You will know if you have scheduled overtime in my calendar, because not only am I not going to accept the meeting, right, if you've scheduled it over my workout classes or my lunch break, but I'm going to tell you, hey, you should go and take a break too. You should go and take the time. What kind of breaks have you taken today? Are you just scrolling through Instagram mindlessly because you have nothing better to do, quote unquote, because you haven't thought about it, because you haven't said to yourself, I'm going to go take a break. I'm going to go drink a glass of water, relax my jaw, see something else besides the screen that's sitting right in front of my face right now. Breaks are going to help you be more productive. And I used to have this fear of a break because I had the fear of not being good enough. I had the fear of focusing on my personal life instead of work. I had this constant weight on my shoulders that if I'm not working, I'm doing something wrong. And how on earth are we expected to do that for like 60 years of our life? I have no idea. I have no idea how anyone is expected to do that. So I don't want to, and I won't be doing that anymore. The final thing is, this is my last big secret, and I have talked about this before in previous episodes, but I want you to hear it again from me because we are going to create evidence. When your brain gets so loud and it starts saying, if it does, you need to keep working. I don't care if you're overworked. We need to get this next promotion. We need to make more money. We need to work harder. We need to give our stakeholders this thing. We can't ask for what we want. We can't. Like when it starts getting so loud in your little head and you're just like, oh my God, all of the things I've tried to unlearn, I'm now going to go back to it. Let's sit back for a second and create some evidence for you. What evidence do you have? This is the best question that I've ever asked or been asked. What evidence do you have? What evidence do you have that you're going to get fired tomorrow if your manager messages you, hey, can we talk? What evidence do you have? Because you probably don't. Or what evidence do you have that someone's going to be mad at you if you don't get them the document tonight by 9 p.m. when they're probably going to go to bed too? I think creating that evidence for ourselves and showing ourselves that we can still be safe. There are so many examples of where you haven't gotten someone that document at 9 p.m. and it was still okay. Life will continue. Life will move on. Your job will continue. You will be okay. Because you are smart, you are intelligent, you are compassionate, you know what to do, and you can do this. You can do this. If no one's reminded you of that today, I'm going to remind you of that 10 million times over because I know that you can. And nothing is worth the burnout, the stress, the anxiety, the exhaustion that comes with running yourself ragged because you feel like your job is the most important thing in your life. You are made up of so many different pieces of the puzzle. There's so many different pieces of your life, and you are allowed to decide which one you're going to focus on now and which one you're going to focus on later. Okay, that brings us to the very end of today's episode. Thank you so much for being here. If you need a couple little action items, I want you to take a look the next time you start to stress out about something. I want you to take a look at what kind of evidence you have, and then I want you to write to me about it. I want you to send me a DM. I want you to send me a message, something in email. Go and write to me about it. Tell me about your experience and say whether or not you were able to find that evidence because I'm so curious. curious. I know that you're going to be able to, even if it's small, even if it's super small, but I'd love to hear from you. The second thing is go and take a break. If you've watched this video is long enough where I'm sure afterwards you could stand up, literally walk in a circle around your desk, go and grab a glass of water, go and grab a tea, a coffee, whatever it is, and just take a breather for a second and then sit back down. The work will always still be there. There's always going to be more work. The emails will never stop. But your brain, your health, your energy, what you can do and what you can accomplish, like that is what I care about. Who you are and whether or not you are getting closer to that life that's inside of your head, whether or not you've told people about it yet. I'm sure you have this life. If you shut your eyes, you have a life that you're dreaming of. I want you to get closer to that. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, make sure you go ahead and do that. It helps so much more than you know, so we can get the word out to more people. We can help you all understand that you are made up of so many different parts, pieces of the puzzle, and you are amazing, wonderful, and great no matter what you end up doing with it. Go and do something fearless today. I know you have it inside of you. This has been another episode of Organized Chaos. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next time. Thanks, everyone.